Jean Simmons was truly a beautiful woman, one that the silver screen loved a lot, but she suffered a heavy price for her beauty no matter where she turned in her days. And her story is a cautionary tale of why women really could not say no in Hollywood or the entertainment industry, no matter where you're from. We're going to get into her story and get into her childhood and more. But first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, Queen Allude, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars through history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so. And if you're already subscribed, please turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. Let's start with her childhood and then we'll get into her career. So Simmons was born on January 31st, 1929 in London. And she was born to a family that was pretty athletic. Her father, Charles Simmons, was a bronze medalist in the gymnastics at the 1912 Summer Olympics, while her mother, Winfred, was a housewife and she kept the house, alive. As the youngest of four siblings, Jean was destined to stand out. She took to the stage like a duck to water at the tender age of 14, ready to dazzle the world. But life took a dramatic turn during World War II when the Simmons clan was evacuated to the village of Winscombe in Somerset. While her father, a physical education teacher, was busy, teaching his wisdom at school, Jean found her calling on the village stage. She relished the spotlight, but her aspirations were modest initially. She envisioned a future as an acrobatic dancer following in her father's athletic footsteps. But unfortunately, tragedy struck when Simmons was just 16 years young. Her father ended up passing away unexpectedly, leaving her shattered and grappling with an unhealed wound. The circumstances surrounding his death still remains a mystery to many, but one thing is certain: this loss catapulted Simmons into the limelight, thrusting her into the acting world almost overnight. She became famous instantly after his untimely death and was kept very busy by the studios. Upon returning to London, she enrolled at the Ada Foster School of Dance, where fate intervened. Director Val Guest spotted her talent and cast her in a significant role opposite Margaret Lockwood in the 1944 film Give Us the Moon. This was just the beginning. She quickly racked up credits in films like Mr. Emanuel, Kiss the Bride Goodbye, Meet Sexton Blake, and the popular The Way to the Stars. Even a small, uncredited role in Caesar and Cleopatra couldn't dim her growing star. On that very set, she crossed paths with the dashing Stuart Granger, a 31-year-old heartthrob who was 15 years her senior. Though they remained just friends at the time, Simmons was only 16, and in a creepy stance, he did say to Lydia Lane in a 1953 article that, when he first met her, he was attracted to her, but he understood that she was underage as she was 16. So he said he just stayed low key because he didn't want to, to a 16-year-old. So he was attracted to her. And Lydia Lane asked him, because Lydia Lane was a little shady too. She asked him, what would make you be attracted to a child, basically? And he said, well, she carried herself pretty maturely and she spoke not too loud, what they usually say. She was very mature. But yeah. Her breakthrough came when she triumphed over more than 1,600 rivals for the coveted role of Kanchi in the 1947 film Black Narcissus. This film did cause a lot of controversy because now when you're looking at it, people are like, hey, she's in blackface. She played, like this Indian native, where they didn't cast someone that was just a native for the role. They placed her in the role and she was like in blackface. But that was the norm of Hollywood during that time. That's just what they did. And these women, again, really didn't have a say. They couldn't deny roles. They really couldn't, as you're going to see with Jean's story. So, we can't really put too much on the actresses and actors of that day because they really did not have a say-so in the roles that they played, as we're going to see. But that role is pretty controversial. But the true turning point was her stunning portrayal of Ophelia alongside the legendary Laurence Olivier in the 1948 adaptation of Hamlet, earning her first Oscar nomination and solidifying her status as a serious actress. In 1949, Simmons found herself in The Blue Lagoon, a film that could have ended her career before it truly began. The studio planned to shoot in Fiji, which was a little difficult because Fiji at the time was not allowing anyone who was under the age of 19 onto the island, and Simmons was just 18 at the time. But of course, they allowed her to get in, but while she was there, she ended up in a car accident with Donald Houston, who was one of her co-stars, and the car they were in basically flipped in a horror accident. It flipped upside down, but miraculously, they both escaped unscathed and nothing happened, and they just continued to film as if nothing happened. I can imagine, the studio's like, oh well, and just continued to film. Next, she starred in Adam and Evelyn, reuniting with her old friend Stuart Granger. Remember him? Yeah, that liked her, but wasn't saying much because he realized, hey, she's only 16. Now she was 21 years old and she saw herself as a woman, and he was now 36 years old. So their long anticipated romance ignited, resulting in a whirlwind marriage just a year later. Despite their attempts to keep their relationship private, the tabloids did ended up find out. To promote the 1950 film So Long at the Fair, the studios did have a plan where they wanted to actually make it seem like Simmons was actually romantically involved with her co-star, Dirk Bogarde. But the timing was not ideal because the announcement of Simmons and Granger came out, of their engagement. It leaked before the film's release, so it threatened to derail both their careers. With Bogarde being a closeted homosexual, the scandal would have been catastrophic for him because it would have brought too much attention on him, and people probably would have found out that he was actually gay. So the studios was like, you know what, this is just too messy. Let's not go about that. And ultimately, the studio ended up scrapping the idea, but Simmons was left in the crossfire, and her film contract was cut short because of this, leaving her future in Hollywood hanging by a thread. So you couldn't even really get married if you wanted to on your own accord in Hollywood because you would be messing up the studio's plans. So the studios was upset with her that she went and got married, and now we have this movie coming out and we can't even pretend that you're dating the co-star to make people want to go see the film, which is, by now you guys know that Hollywood does that. People don't be together for real. Think of the Twilight series. They weren't together for real. But it helps. It helps increase sales. People want to see. People want to, Jean was too young and too beautiful to already go and lock herself in a marriage. It didn't make her really marketable because now she wasn't an object of desirability because you're a married woman. And not only that, we couldn't use you to kind of cover for our gay actors, which a lot of these women would cover for a lot of these actors as well. So they let her go. As Jean Simmons blossomed into a stunning film star, the spotlight attracted admirers from all corners. Some of them even married, but one particular figure loomed large in her life, the enigmatic Howard Hughes, which I did a video for him. And after catching a glimpse of Simmons and So Long at the Fair, the legendary business tycoon became very obsessed with her, you can say. In a move that would send shockwaves to her career, Hughes secretly bought out her contract from the Rank organization, leaving Simmons entirely in the dark about this audacious takeover. Simmons had no say-so with him buying her contract off just like that. And she knew he was kind of obsessed with her, but she had no say-so. He was a billionaire. He had the studios in his pockets. What could you do, right? Suddenly, this British darling who had only starred in modest British productions found herself ensnared in the web of a powerful and obsessed Hollywood mogul. Life as she knew it was about to take a wild turn, and not in the direction that she hoped. At the same time, Hughes was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Her husband, Stuart Granger, was skyrocketing to fame with his role in King Solomon's Mines. The British power couple packed their bags and set off for the glitzy allure of Hollywood, unaware of the dark cloud looming over their heads. Once Simmons touched down in the land of stars, Hughes wasted no time. He wanted to sleep with Jean Simmons, for lack of a better word. But Granger, her husband, wasn't having none of it. He was like, absolutely not. Enraged, he picked up the phone and unleashed a furious warning to Hughes. He said, "Mr. Howard Bloody Hughes, you'll be sorry if you don't leave my wife alone." End quote. And Howard Hughes was the richest man in the world at that time. Just keep that in mind. You're threatening the richest man in the world, okay? So Simmons' first project under Hughes was also her American debut, America, in the film Androcles and Lion in 1952. While Hughes managed to keep his hands off her for the most part during filming, his obsession didn't mean he wouldn't orchestrate some twisted plan for her next project. Next up was Angel Face, one of her best films ever. He plotted with the film director, Otto Preminger, and made his sinister motivations clear. So he had Otto Preminger, the director, in his pockets, and he told him, I'm going to get even with that little female dog. And you're going to help me. Because Hughes was mad that Gene Simmons just would not sleep with him. And he was like, okay, you don't want to sleep with me? You want to say no to my advances? I'm going to make you pay for it. So Hughes had less than 3 weeks left on Simmons' contract and wanted to make every moment count, especially for revenge. He sweetened the deal for Preminger. He offered a bonus if he could wrap up filming in 18 days and giving him free rein to rewrite the script. So can you imagine? He told the director, I will pay you extra money if you could just torture her while she's filming. Preminger, known for his tyrannical approach to directing, he sees the opportunity to unleash hell on Simmons. One particularly brutal scene required her co-star Robert Mitchum to slap her, and Preminger kept pushing for harder hits to elicit the perfect response. It was painfully clear, I'm not going to show you guys the scene, of course, but it was painfully clear to everyone that was there that Preminger was being a bully, basically everyone that was on set. Though they had no inkling that it was, Hughes that asked Preminger to do that. But just when the situation reached a boiling point after probably like the 50th slap, everyone on set was starting to just be like, okay. And it looked like Preminger was enjoying it. And by this time, Gene Simmons' cheeks were like scarred, okay? Mitchum, while he was going to, slap Gene Simmons again at the orders of Preminger, Mitchum turned the tables. Fed up with Preminger's cruelty, he ended up slapping the director instead, sending him fleeing from the set. And then Preminger demanded that Mitchum would be fired because how dare he slap me. But fortunately, Mitchum at the time was like, he was too big of a star. He was like a George Clooney of his days and George Clooney's prime, right? So Preminger couldn't risk losing him on the film because he was going to make the film and too much investment. So he had to, sink back and continue filming. He had to come back. But that was the last time he messed with Gene Simmons because by then everyone on set was kind of like, okay, we can't witness this. And Mitchum made it clear that he wasn't going to be used to basically abuse Simmons. And this is something that they do in Hollywood. If you watch a movie where the star maybe said no and declined, to be with the producer or director or whatever, you often will see them insert a painful scene. Or if they can't sleep with you physically because maybe your morals or your husband, you're married or you denied them or you're not interested, then they'll insert a scene where you're bare and to humiliate you. The scene is not necessary, it's pointless, but they'll just insert a bare scene in there for the women. We'll see that this happened to Gene Simmons as well, that they did that to her. Or they'll insert a forceful scene where the woman is being forcefully tortured. Or they'll play out their fantasy with the woman using the actor to humiliate her. So that's unfortunately something the women of those days had to deal with, and they could not just, because contracts were already written, they could get sued and face a lot of penalties, and, they just couldn't really say much but endure. But Gene Simmons, for the most part, stuck to her guns and was like, hey, she's not going to sleep with Howard Hughes. She paid for it and just took it on the chin, okay? So for that, leave her some flower emojis in the comments, okay? Because not a lot of women. Some women would just want the torture to stop, or some women just, hey, he's a billionaire, let me just do that. But she really stuck to her guns for most of her career, and I like that. In a petty twist of fate, Hughes also sabotaged Simmons' chances at even greater stardom. Director William Wyler wanted her for the lead in Roman Holiday, a role that would catapult Audrey Hepburn to fame. And I did a video for Audrey Hepburn as well, but I'm thinking about doing an updated one. But that movie is really popular, one of the classics. But Hughes refused to let Gene Simmons go into it. And I think Gene Simmons would have killed it too, And that cost Simmons the opportunity of a lifetime, because that ended up being the biggest movie of that year, right? Ultimately, Simmons had enough of Hughes controlling grass. She was starting to get fed up. So she decided to take him to court, ready to fight for her freedom. Realizing she was serious about breaking free and she started to get allies in the industry too that were like, okay, girl, we got your back if you go to court for him, because he was doing way too much with her. Hughes started to reluctantly agree to release her. But he said, for a price. I'll release you from this contract for a price. He made her commit to a few additional films before she could finally escape his obsessive clutches. And they weren't the best films, but he was like, hey, just to torture her, and have her around longer. She reluctantly agreed, and that's how she started to free herself. Jean Simmons had fought her way through the storm, but the scars from her tumultuous encounter with Howard Hughes would stay with her forever. Jean Simmons' breathtaking beauty had earned her unwanted attention from producers and creepy directors, but her striking looks had an even darker side, making some casting directors and co-stars very uncomfortable. Once she finally broke free from her contract with Howard Hughes, Simmons quickly discovered that landing good roles was a daunting task without the backing of powerful insiders. She quickly realized that she was, in a sense, not blackballed, but a lot of the women, to get these great roles, you kind of needed a producer or a director to be obsessed with you, to find you attractive, to want to sleep with you. That's the only way you could get roles back then. And she was like, okay, well, now I have a reputation for not being that girl. So this is kind of difficult here. I'm going to have to work a little bit harder or be so much more talented to be able to get roles. Whispers began to circulate that Howard Hughes wasn't the only man unable to resist Simmons' allure. According to Richard Burton's biographer, she allegedly engaged in a sizzling affair with the notoriously promiscuous actor while filming 1953's The Robe. Her husband, Stuart Granger, was not having any of it, and of course a lot of men, because she had such a difficult personality, they were lying on her too, obviously. Some were lying on her, claiming that they had affairs with her when they really didn't. And the thing with Jean, she would always go back to her husband and be like, here's what they doing. And her husband would always come back and, he'd go to bat for her. I'll give him that. When Granger caught wind of the scandalous tales about his wife and Burton, he confronted the actor with a pistol, making it abundantly clear that he wanted Burton to steer clear of Simmons. Burton got the message loud and clear, but Simmons' captivating look landed her in some more hot water. This time on the set of 1955 Guys and Dolls. Despite the tension in the air, she had a notable rapport with the film's director, Joseph L. Mankiewicz. However, even Simmons could sense that his feelings for her went beyond professional. Years later, she admitted, and I quote, "I was aware that he was in love with me, and I think I was with him, really, which I've never admitted to anybody," end quote. So that one, she, I guess, fell for the temptation of that one. For the most part, Simmons played well with her co-stars and crew. She was known as a sweetheart among her crews, but that was mostly with the men, right? She also had a sassy side, a little mean girl side to her. On the set of 1954's The Egyptian, Simmons couldn't resist poking fun at her co-star Bella Darby, which I did a video for her. Gorgeous. Okay, check that video out also. I'll put it in the end cards. Bella Darby played Nefer. Simmons mockingly joked and said that Darby was an actress who never was, ouch, and made fun of her acting and stuff. And Bella Darby spoke about how basically Jean Simmons bullied her on the set. So that wasn't too nice, okay? And although Simmons was stunning, she quickly learned that relying on her looks wouldn't carry her through her entire career. Her experience on the 1958 blockbuster, The Big Country, left her emotionally scarred. Allegedly, the relentless director, William Wyler, kept calling for exhausting retakes that pushed the cast to their limits. In a candid interview years later, Simmons revealed the torment she endured on set. "We'd have our lines learned," she explained, "then receive a rewrite, stay up all night learning the new version, only to get yet another rewrite the following morning. It made acting nearly impossible," end quote. The stress from her turbulent filming experiences likely took a toll on her marriage, or perhaps Granger was simply worn out from constantly defending his wife against all of these wealthy, influential, and powerful men. He got tired. He was like, listen, I can't do this. And the fact that she started to fall for the temptations too, he probably felt really betrayed, In early 1960s, Simmons and Granger finally decided to part ways, and their divorce was finalized. But rather than wallowing in self-pity, Simmons actually moved on pretty quickly. a little too quickly. While her divorce from Granger was still fresh, she dove headfirst into production for Richard Brooks' 1960 film Elmer Gantry, and rumor has it that this project was a catalyst for her decision to end her 10-year marriage. Sparks were flying between Simmons and Brooks, and it appears their romantic entanglement began before her divorce was official. By December of that same year, Simmons strolled down the aisle once again, not long after she welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world. Rumors suggesting that she had started her affair with Brooks while still married to Granger was everywhere, and people, of course, started to believe it because she just moved on so quickly. The stunning Jean Simmons found herself in more scandalous situations while filming Spartacus, where she had to spend hours on set completely topless for a steamy scene in a pond. So yeah, like I said, they'll do that. We can't lay with you. We're going to have you on screen bare, okay? For hours, she was just on set, uncovered, in the water. Yeah. And she basically had nothing on, even down there too, because she only had a couple of tiny band-aids to shield her modesty, if you will, like her privates. So can you imagine like 2-3 band-aids to cover the strip, but the rest of you is just exposed? Yeah. She braved the cold water, all while the crew worked to get the perfect shot. And they kept her in that cold water for a long time to keep her situations perked up, yeah. But as the 1960s rolled on, her opportunities began to dwindle. Ironically, this decline coincided with her growing penchant for hitting the wet bar. And rumors swirled through Tinseltown that Simmons was indulging a little bit too much and drinking alcohol. She started to develop an addiction. Who knows? Maybe the industry started to kind of have its toll on her around that time, or she was just indulging in the party lifestyle. And in 1969, her husband, Richard Brooks, cast her in The Happy Ending, where Simmons played a character grappling with addiction. It was said that Brooks fashioned the role, like he created the whole role after her own struggles, hoping that acting out her personal demons might lead her to some kind of healing. Like maybe if she acts out a woman who is an addict, she will see that, hey, I am an addict, and stop. So he really was trying to be there for her. But there was no fairy tale resolution for Simmons and Brooks. After 2 decades of marriage, the couple decided to part ways in 1977, finalizing their divorce 3 years later. Aware of her burgeoning issues with alcohol, Simmons bravely confronted her addiction and went to get help, checking herself into rehab to reclaim her life. Emerging stronger, Simmons made her comeback in the world of acting in 1985. She snagged a Primetime Emmy Award for her captivating performance in the miniseries The Thornbirds, a moment that finally gave her the recognition she so richly deserved. Gone were the days when she relied solely on her stunning looks. Simmons acknowledged the harsh reality of Hollywood. Every actress has to face the facts. There are younger, more beautiful girls right behind you. Once you've gone beyond the vanity of the business, you'll take on the tough roles, end quote. She remarked, embracing the grit that came with maturity. Few actresses could boast the kind of storied career Simmons had, where her natural beauty both helped her soar and brought her crashing down. In the end, she learned that true strength lies not just in looks, but in resilience and the ability to confront one's demons. Simmons passed away from lung cancer at her home in Santa Monica on January 22nd, 2010, just 9 days before her 81st birthday. This is just another story of what these women had to endure. So, what tough. Please comment below who else would you guys like me to do a video for, and also leave some flower emojis in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.